draft. I'm ready to do a mock draft.
Okay.
I'm an NFL draft expert, as everyone knows. I watch college football every week, and I have strong takes. No, look, what I like about the NFL draft is first round picks, everyone can kind of get in on this. There's only so many players who are projected. Their stuff is on YouTube. You can get detailed draft profiles and make an informed opinion, and I've done that. I know exactly who the Niners are going to draft in round 1 and round 2. I haven't talked to anyone about it, but it came to me, and I'm very certain that I'm correct. Larry also knows we may have different names, but that's how it goes. So who you got? Round 1. I know who they're going to take. Who do you think it's going to be? Wrong.
Are we betting, or are we? Is this just
Are we betting? Yeah, we can bet. Betting's fun.
Are we wagering?
Sure.
I mean, I think Tyler Guyton is probably the safest pick, but
I like that.
The offensive tackle from Oklahoma.
I like that. Yeah,
but
that'd be a good pick.
You know, and I know that the Niners don't take offensive tackles.
I don't think they're going to take an offensive tackle in round 1. I just don't.
Players. Yeah, I'm gonna say Braden Fisk from Florida State.
Talk to us. Tell us who Braden Fisk is. Of course, I know who he is.
Yeah,
but for those who don't.
He's a gigantic. He started at Western Michigan. He transferred to Florida State. He at the combine, he had incredible footwork on the drills. He's 6'5", 292. Chris Kasarik will love him because the motor burns constantly. The guy plays incredibly hard. He's a pass rushing guy. So like you have Hargrave and you have, these two tackles they just brought in, but you're going to need a little bit of more interior rush, and Braden Fisk will give that to you. He'll definitely be on the board. I think he's slated to go in the middle of round 2. I could see them moving back a spot or two and maybe taking him at 33, 34. But Braden Fisk, Florida State, defensive tackle, that's what I'm going with.
And this is your prediction for what the Niners are going to do.
Prediction.
I like it.
That's not necessarily what I would do, but that's what I think they'll do.
And it makes total sense. They go defense. I'm going to go. My player is going to be on defense as well. They love defensive linemen. And just because they got 2 defensive tackles in free agency doesn't mean they won't take one in round 1. Good pick. I'm going Cooper DeJean from Iowa. He was
not a D lineman though.
Not a D lineman. They've been looking for DBs throughout free agency, but they haven't really pulled the trigger on one. Of all their DBs, the only starter who signed past this upcoming season is Jair Brown. Hufanga, Diamador Lenore, Travarius Ward, Ambry Thomas, all free agents after this year. I think it's pretty clear they're looking for a DB. And what was cool about Cooper DeJean is that he could play safety, he could play nickel, he could play corner. He's a gunner. He's a punt returner. He was the returner of the year in the Big Ten. He was the DB of the year in the Big Ten. He broke his fibula at the end of the year. I don't think he's tested yet, but he had a bunch of interceptions in college. He's probably going to test pretty well once he does. He's supposed to get picked right around at the end of round 1. I think he'd be a good fit as a guy who could actually play right away, wherever in the defensive backfield, be their punt returner and their gunner, as opposed to an offensive lineman who wouldn't play right away for the 49ers.
According to they're saying this kid ran really, really fast. Now, I don't know if
he's a good athlete.
I don't know if they have his workout yet, but he's a hell of a football player. And if you watch Iowa football,
he's really a player.
Their offense is unwatchable, but their defense is just spectacular. And this guy's a really good football player. I mean, really good. So
a good athlete. He's got ball skills. I think he'd be a really good fit. The special teams is nice. People say he may not be able to play much man-to-man coverage. Niners don't really want to play much man-to-man coverage. He's a hell of a tackler. I don't know. It seems like the kind of corner they like.
He's a great athlete. He's a great athlete. This guy, they're saying he's going to run around 4.50, but during high school, he ran the 100 meters in 11.16 and the 200 meters in 22.12. So, I mean, that's despite being 6'1" and weighing 207 pounds. So this guy is really, really fast, Really, really athletic, really, really good football player. So they think he's going to run like 4.4. So that's pretty damn good time.
I ran 11.3 in high school. It's a true story.
11.3, really?
I ran 11.3. I could move. I couldn't crack 10, 10, but 11.3. I was 165 pounds. I wasn't really carrying much.
Where'd you play? O'Dowd?
I was at O'Dowd, and I ran track my senior year. I ran hurdles, 300 hurdles. We had some fast guys in the team. We had one guy who ran a 10.7, one guy who ran 11 flat. Fast dudes at Bishop O'Dowd. Good school,
man.
My nephew just got in. Shout out to Sam Strauss. Just got in.
I remember playing them in basketball, football, and lacrosse. They were good in all three sports.
We've always taken those sports seriously. Okay, round 2.
Brian Shaw, Tony Jackson. Those are two.
Brian Shaw, and then we had Napoleon Kaufman as a coach recently.
Tony Jackson though was a great player who was pre Brian Shaw, and he played for DePaul. He was one of the best players in the country. I believe.
Who's that linebacker for the Raiders who went to O'Dowd?
I
saw him at the Super Bowl. Why am I blanking on his name?
Yeah, I'm blanking on his name too. He's a great guy too.
I just met him at the Super Bowl. I forget his name. Anyway.
Yeah, it'll come to me.
Yeah. Okay. The Niners' second round pick didn't come either. We went defense in round 1. Are they going to finally go offense in round 2? The end of round. This pick 63, I believe.
Yeah. So now in round 2, I think, and a lot of people would be like, oh, well, if they go D-line in round 1, they have to go offensive tackle in round 2. I don't think they're going to. I don't think they're going to. I think that there are really good offensive tackles in the 3rd round, and I think they're going to go in the 3rd round. And I'll give you the names: Javon Foster from Missouri, Christian Jones from Texas, Garrett Greenfield, South Dakota State. I think, and Caden Wallace also they looked at from Penn State. I think one of those guys is going to be their pick in the 3rd or 4th round. I think in round 2, this is where they're going to go surprise us. And I'll say right now, I think it's going to be Malachi Corley.
Interesting.
Kentucky.
If they want him to trade.
What's their pick?
63.
Yeah, this guy's listed at 74. So I think he'll be there. He's 5'11",
on CBS?
220. No, I'm looking at Draft Tech as far as
okay.
where they're ranked.
Okay.
But yeah, Malachi Corley, I think, is going to be their 2nd round pick. I'll tell you the other guy that I love, and I know it doesn't make any sense, and I know it's like people would be like, what? They're not doing that. But I think Blake Corum from Michigan, the running back, is spectacular. And I think it's going to be an offensive weapon. I think it's going to be Malachi Corley or Blake Corum. And then I think they'll go offensive line. I mean, they could also, the only other spot I think it potentially could be is it could be a corner. If like a TJ Tampa was there, maybe a Max Melton, if he was there, maybe. Those are the 2 guys that I think could be in round 2 corner wise. But I think they'll be gone by the time the Niners pick. And I think they'll be choosing an offensive player, and I'll say Malachi Corley.
Okay. I think they're going to take an offensive tackle here. They took Aaron Banks in round 2. He was redshirted, and then he started his 2nd year. They recently signed Brandon Parker, who was like the 65th pick in the draft. I don't know that Brandon Parker is going to actually make the team. Like, he isn't that good, but I think that's sort of the level of athlete they're trying to find at the right tackle spot, like someone who would be a late 2nd, early 3rd round pick. I think they're looking at Blake Fisher from Notre Dame.
That's interesting.
They've had success drafting offensive linemen from Notre Dame. Aaron Banks, Mike McGlinchey, like, I know we sort of, Mike McGlinchey's a bit of a punchline with the Niners, but they always liked him. And he'd still be on this team if he wasn't making $17 million a year. So I think they trust that program. And I think you could get a starting right tackle who would sit for a year, develop, and then be the guy in a year or 2 in Blake Fisher. And you wouldn't have pressure to play him right away if you draft him in round 2.
Yeah, that's a good name. That's a good one. I like that. I'll say Javon Foster of the, if they go O-line there, but man, I mean, I think you couldn't go wrong really with either guy. I think you've got, big, athletic, long arm guys who can be developed. My feeling is that they want to stock the cupboard, but they don't want to start those guys. So they're not going to. They're going to take a defensive lineman or a wide receiver, or corner early, and then they're going to take like maybe 2 guys that they really like developmentally on the O line.
Yeah,
and they're going to plug them in when they're ready.
And if they were to take an offensive tackle in round 1, I don't think they would take that guy unless they thought he could eventually move to left tackle. They took McGlinchey in round 1. I think they thought he was going to eventually move to left tackle and replace Joe Staley, and they were wrong. He played a little left tackle at Notre Dame. Some people thought he could make the transition. Some people didn't. He couldn't. He can't. He's a right tackle. But in round 2, they took a left guard. They could absolutely take a right tackle if they like the guy. And again, I know that they trust the Notre Dame products, to use a kind of a dehumanizing term for football players. Products. Do you ever notice how many dehumanizing terms there are for football players? Weapons, toys, products. It's like
right
all the time.
They're machines. They're
all that. Swiss Army knife.
They're not humans. They're
a new ball of clay for the coach to mold. It's like, no, it's a person. They have parents. Okay, one more thing.
I'll say this too. I watched the national championship. Michigan, and they got this kid Ladarius Henderson, who was an Arizona State kid who transferred, and they kept pulling their right guard and right tackle, and I believe he played right tackle for Michigan. And this dude, 6'4", 310 with speed, and he's going to be on the board there too. So Michigan, Ohio, Notre Dame. There's some really good offensive tackles that are going to be on the board in the 2nd and 3rd round.